Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be diving into moving, and we found like a super detailed checklist to help us out.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? It's so detailed, it kind of even blew my mind a little bit. And I'm, the packing expert here.
Yeah, a lot of people, they think they got it.
Right.
And then something comes up and they're like, whoa, I didn't even think of that.
Totally.
This checklist is going to be like having a pro mover right there with you.
Okay, so should we get started on this deep dive?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this checklist, it's recommending we start a whole 2 months before moving day.
Yeah.
Now that's a little intense to me.
I know it sounds like a lot, but believe me, that's what the pros do.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it.
Okay.
It's like training for a marathon.
Yeah.
You don't just show up on race day. You got to prepare.
Right.
Moving's the same way.
Okay, makes sense.
You start early, you break it down into the smaller pieces. You're not going to be as stressed.
Yeah, no one wants to be scrambling last minute.
Exactly.
So what's our first step then in this moving marathon training?
Well, the first thing on the checklist is a little different. It recommends starting a moving binder.
Ooh, a moving binder.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this because I'm thinking like my grandma's scrapbook. What is this?
Well, it's not a scrapbook. It's like mission control for your move.
Okay.
We're talking everything. Contracts, receipts, your to-do list info for all the people involved, even Pinterest boards for inspiration.
Oh, that's a really good idea. I could see that being super helpful when things are hectic.
Yeah, and a lot of people will be like, well, I'll just use a folder on my computer.
Right, exactly.
A digital system works, but let me tell you, in a moment of stress, say a damaged item, you need to make an insurance claim, you need that physical copy, you can just grab it instantly.
Yeah.
Receipts, they fade, emails get lost. That binder's right there.
That's true. That's a good point. It's like having that emergency kit.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, I should put that together, and then you never do until you need it.
Right, exactly. And speaking of potential disasters, the checklist says you should get at least 3 moving company quotes.
Okay.
I know it's tempting to just go with the first one.
Yeah, especially when you're feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, you just want it to be done.
Just get it over with.
But doing a little comparison shopping can really make a big difference.
Okay, but are we just talking about the price here, or is there more to it?
Price is definitely a factor, but it's not the only one. Think about it like choosing a doctor. You're not just going to pick the cheapest one.
Right.
You want someone experienced, good reviews, and someone you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, personality is important too.
Right. And it's the same with movers. Some movers specialize in certain types of moves. Some offer packing services.
Okay.
Some are better for long distance.
Right.
So getting those multiple quotes lets you compare the details, and you can pick the company that's the best fit for what you need.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not just about going with the cheapest. It's about finding the right partner in this whole moving journey. Okay, so we got our binder started. We're gathering those quotes. What's next on our moving marathon?
This one might seem obvious, but people forget it.
Okay.
Request time off work for moving day.
Oh, yeah.
And not just squeezing it in between meetings. I'm talking dedicated time where you can focus on the move.
Okay, good reminder.
Yeah.
But how much time are we talking here? A full day? More than that?
It really depends on how complex the move is, but I always tell people at least 2 full days.
Right.
One for packing and loading and one for unloading and settling in.
Okay.
And if you can swing it, have like a buffer day on either side just to reduce that stress.
That's a good tip. And here's where it gets interesting. This checklist then connects that time off to decluttering.
Yes.
So the less you have to move, the less time you need off.
That's right. Moving is like the perfect opportunity to get rid of all that stuff you haven't used in years.
It is. It's like a clean slate. You can evaluate what you really need.
Exactly.
I love decluttering. Do you have any tips to make this a little less painful?
Yeah, for sure. First, set realistic goals. Don't try to do it all at once.
Right.
Break it down like one room or a drawer at a time.
Right.
Second, make it fun. Put some music on. Invite a friend over.
Okay.
Turn it into a social event.
I like that.
And third, have a plan for what you're going to do with the stuff you get rid of.
That's a good point. It's not just about getting rid of things. It's being intentional with what we let go of.
Exactly.
So what are some options for that?
Well, there's always the classic garage sale. Make a little extra cash.
Right.
Then there's donating to charity.
Right.
Give those items a second life.
Yeah.
And of course, you can always recycle or dispose of the things that can't be used anymore.
Responsibly, of course.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so we requested some time off. We're decluttering like pros.
Yes.
And now we're ready to tackle the dreaded inventory.
Oh, yes.
Not the most glamorous task, I know. But this checklist really stresses how important this is.
Yeah, and I can't stress that enough. Imagine something gets damaged or lost during the move.
Oh.
Without a detailed inventory, it's a nightmare trying to prove what you had and how much it was worth.
Yeah.
This is really about protecting yourself.
So we're not talking about just a mental list here,
No,
right?
no. We're talking room by room, item by item.
Okay.
You can even take pictures and videos.
Ooh, good idea.
And guess what? This goes right in that trusty moving binder.
It all leads back to the binder.
Ah,
We should just rename this episode The Power of the Moving Binder.
it's that important.
Okay.
And while we're talking about important things, let's not forget about some of those little details.
Okay, like what kind of details are we talking?
Things like schools, doctors, pet records, all those things that need to be researched and transferred to your new location.
Okay.
This is especially important if you have a family or pets.
Yeah, that's a good point. Finding new doctors' schools, vets,
Exactly.
that can take time.
It does.
So starting early makes that transition so much easier.
And it's not just about finding new ones, it's about transferring records.
Oh, right.
Requesting transcripts, getting those medical files, making sure your pet's vaccinations are up to date.
Yeah.
These are things that people forget when they're busy packing.
It's like a whole hidden layer of to-dos that most people don't think about.
Right, exactly. That's why this checklist is so great. It makes you think of every little detail.
Okay, so we've got health and education covered. What other details are we forgetting?
Digital backups.
Oh, right.
This is for everyone, not just families.
Okay.
Think of all those photos, videos, important documents on your computer. A move is prime time for those things to get lost or damaged.
That's a scary thought.
Mm-hmm.
So are we talking external hard drives, cloud storage? What's the best way to do this?
The ideal scenario is to do both a physical and a cloud backup.
Okay.
That way you have 2 layers of protection.
Okay, you've convinced me. Backups are on my to-do list now.
Okay.
What else do we need to be careful with?
Personal security, financial and legal records, keep those separate from everything else.
Okay.
Keep them with you at all times.
So that means not on the moving truck.
Exactly. It's not about being paranoid, just being smart. You don't want those sensitive documents falling into the wrong hands.
That's good advice. Okay, so we got our binder, our budget. We're decluttering, backing up files, and keeping those important papers close. What's next?
Well, 6 weeks before the move, it's time to make some decisions. Starting with your moving company.
Oh?
Remember all those quotes we talked about?
Yeah.
This is where they come into play.
Okay, so we've done the research. We got those quotes. Now, how do we actually choose? What are some red flags to watch out for?
The checklist really stresses the importance of reading those contracts. And I mean thoroughly.
Right.
No skimming.
Right.
This is a legally binding document. You got to understand what you're signing up for.
So your expertise comes in, right? You can help people understand all that jargon and make sure they're not getting tricked.
Exactly. And there's one detail I really want to highlight for our listeners. The DOT number.
Okay, I've heard of that, but I honestly don't know what it's for. Why should we care about the DOT number?
It's a really easy way to verify that the moving company is legitimate and that they're authorized to operate.
Okay.
Think of it like a safety check to avoid those moving scams. You can look up the DOT number online
Okay.
and make sure it matches the paperwork.
So it's about protecting ourselves from shady movers who maybe aren't insured or don't have the right licenses.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a good tip. It's a small step that can save you a lot of trouble down the road.
Right. And once you've chosen your mover and signed everything, it's time for what the checklist calls the Great Notification Spree.
Okay, I love that name. It really captures the spirit. But what does it actually involve? Who are we notifying?
It's about letting everyone know that you're moving, starting with the post office for your change of address.
Yeah, that one's obvious. But I bet there are a lot of others that people forget about.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about utilities, government agencies, financial institutions, subscription services, even your BIM.
Okay, it really is a spree. It's a lot to keep track of.
It is. And while we're on the topic of notifications, there's another thing people overlook. Confirming parking for the moving truck at both your old and new places.
Oh, that's a good point. You might need a permit or something.
Especially in a busy city with street parking.
Right.
It's a little thing, but it can save you a lot of stress and maybe some tickets on moving day.
Okay, so 6 weeks out, we've chosen our movers. We sent out those notifications, and we're getting ready for packing. What's next?
Well, if you're renting, there's a crucial step. Checking with your landlord for any specific move-out requirements.
Oh, right. Like cleaning guidelines or repairs or maybe specific instructions for returning keys.
Exactly. And don't forget to give your landlord your new address so they can send that security deposit.
Oh, that's important. You don't want any delays getting that money back.
Right. And whether you're renting or owning, the checklist emphasizes taking care of any home repairs that you've been putting off.
Okay.
This is about leaving your place in good condition and avoiding any issues with your security deposit.
Right. You want to make sure that transition is smooth for everyone involved.
Exactly. Okay, so you've talked to the landlord, made the repairs, and now it's time for packing. And this checklist, it's not just about packing. It gives you a strategic approach so you don't feel overwhelmed.
Okay, good, because packing can be a little overwhelming.
Right.
So how do we tackle this beast?
It's about breaking it down into smaller parts. And remember all that decluttering we did?
Yeah.
That's going to help a lot now.
True. They're suggesting we start early, even if it's just a little bit each day.
Yeah.
That way it doesn't seem so daunting.
Right. And you can be more intentional about what you're packing. Instead of just throwing things in boxes, you can organize and pack things strategically.
And speaking of strategic packing, this checklist gets really specific about labeling.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about writing kitchen or bedroom on the box.
Nope. They recommend labeling like a pro with the contents, how fragile it is, and even numbering the boxes.
Okay, why the numbers, though? What's the point of that?
It's a system that helps both you and the movers. It makes it easier to track the boxes. It ensures that fragile things are handled carefully.
Okay.
And it helps you keep an organized inventory.
So if a box goes missing, you know exactly what was in it.
Exactly.
And when it comes to unpacking, you can prioritize the boxes you need first.
Right. It's about making the whole process efficient on moving day and during unpacking.
Okay, now this next tip is just for renters. Double-check those landlord-specific move-out requirements.
Yes. Make sure you're following the lease agreement.
Okay.
Whether it's patching holes, cleaning the oven, or how to return the keys.
Right. You don't want to lose any of that security deposit.
Exactly. It's about being a good tenant and making sure everything goes smoothly.
Okay, so we've packed, we've labeled, we've triple-checked those landlord requirements.
Okay.
What else do we need to worry about a month before the move?
Long-distance car care.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier, but it's good to mention it again now that it's getting closer.
Exactly. If you're driving a long distance, you want to make sure your car is ready. Get it serviced. Check the tire pressure. Make sure all the fluids are topped off. You don't want any breakdowns on the road.
It's about having that peace of mind, knowing your car is reliable and ready for the trip.
Exactly. Speaking of being prepared, the checklist has a whole section about finalizing details 1 month before the move.
Okay, let's get into that. What are the key tasks we need to take care of now?
Well, first, you need to book those movers and confirm your date.
Okay.
This is super important if you're moving during a busy time when movers are in high demand.
Yeah, you don't want to be scrambling last minute and end up with a bad company or a higher price.
Exactly. Booking early gives you that peace of mind.
Okay, and if you're moving long distance and need to book flights or hotels, now's the time to do that too.
Yes. Don't wait until the last minute. You'll have fewer options and higher prices.
Right.
Especially if you're traveling during peak season.
Okay, and this checklist goes beyond booking movers and travel. It also reminds us to pack essential documents separately.
Oh, yes. That's important.
Like birth certificates, passports, social security cards.
Right, all those things you don't want to be digging through boxes for.
Makes sense. Keep those with you. And while we're on the topic of planning ahead, the checklist says to start thinking about furniture layout in your new place.
Yeah, might seem early, but trust me, visualizing where your furniture will go, even measuring things, can save you a lot of headaches on moving day.
Oh, I can imagine trying to rearrange heavy furniture with movers waiting.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for stress and maybe some damaged walls.
Exactly. Planning ahead makes the move-in process so much smoother.
Right, you can focus on getting settled instead of playing furniture. Tetris.
Exactly.
Okay, we booked the movers, travel arrangements, packed those important documents, and figured out the furniture. What else is on the checklist?
A few personal tasks that are easy to forget. One is refilling any prescriptions.
Oh, yeah, right. You don't want to run out of medication during the move or have to find a new pharmacy.
Exactly. It's about keeping things consistent, even during a big change, like moving.
And speaking of those routine tasks, the checklist also says to transfer financial accounts to your new address.
Yes, that includes banks, credit cards, and any other financial institutions you use.
Okay, and don't forget about setting up utilities and internet service in your new place.
Yes, this is crucial, especially if you're moving far away. You want everything ready when you arrive.
Right. Imagine getting to your new home after a long move and you have no power or internet.
Oh, that would be awful.
Not a good start.
No. And while you're setting up utilities, don't forget to confirm parking for the moving truck,
Oh, right. We might need that permit.
especially in busy areas with limited street parking.
Okay, good point. It's a little detail that could save a lot of stress.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here. Booking movers, planning furniture, setting up utilities. What's next on this epic checklist?
Well, 2 weeks before the move, it's all about like tying up loose ends and confirming all those details we've been working on.
Okay, I like the tying up loose ends. It sounds very satisfying.
Oh.
What exactly does that mean, though?
Well, it starts with double-checking everything with your moving company and your real estate agent.
Okay.
Make sure everyone's on the same page about the dates, times, addresses, any special instructions.
Okay.
It's your chance to catch any little problems before they turn into big moving day disasters.
That's a great idea. It's like a final dress rehearsal.
Exactly. And while we're at it now is a good time to return any borrowed items.
Oh, yeah.
You know, those library books, tools, anything you might have borrowed from friends or neighbors.
Yeah.
It's just a nice gesture, shows you're responsible, and it helps keep those relationships strong.
And it avoids those awkward moments when you're like, oh, I forgot I borrowed that.
Exactly. And speaking of things you might have forgotten about,
Okay.
now's the time to empty any storage units you might have.
That's a good point.
The fewer places you have to move stuff from, the smoother it'll be.
Right. No one wants to be juggling multiple moving trucks and storage units on the big day.
Exactly. Now let's talk about recurring services. Now is the perfect time to stop things like newspaper delivery, trash, pickup, lawn service at your old address.
Okay.
You don't want to be paying for stuff you're not using anymore.
Right. It's all about closing that chapter and getting ready for the new one.
Exactly.
Okay, so we confirmed details, tied up those loose ends, said goodbye to the neighbors. What else do we need to remember 2 weeks out?
This is a big one. If you have appliances that are moving with you, schedule servicing for them.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It's better to fix any potential problems now than to deal with a broken appliance when you're in your new place surrounded by boxes.
That's very true. It's all about being proactive.
Exactly. And if you have large outdoor items like swing sets, trampolines, satellite dishes, now is the time to figure out how you're going to move them. They often need special handling.
Okay.
Maybe they need to be disassembled or transported separately.
Right. It's all about thinking ahead and making a plan.
Exactly. And for those with houseplants, you got to think about how you're going to transport those too. Some plants are delicate and need extra care during a move.
I'd be so sad if something happened to my fiddle leaf fig during the move. Any tips for keeping our plant friends happy?
Well, if you're driving, it's best to transport them in your own car to avoid extreme temperatures.
Okay.
Make sure they're watered before the move and secure the pots to prevent spills.
Good advice. Okay, so we've addressed appliances, outdoor items, even our plants.
Yeah.
What else should we be thinking about at this 2-week mark?
Okay, this checklist is amazing. It even reminds us to pack a moving day bag with all the essentials you'll need right away.
Oh, like what?
Snacks, clothes medications, toiletries, phone chargers, maybe even a book for some downtime.
That's a great idea. It's like a little survival kit for moving day. You don't want to be digging through boxes for your toothbrush when you get to your new place exhausted.
Exactly. And speaking of practicalities, don't forget to confirm the end date for your utilities phone TV at your old place.
Oh, right. Don't want to be paying for stuff we're not using anymore. And we should probably double-check the start date for utilities at the new place, too.
Yes, that's super important. You want everything up and running when you arrive.
Okay, so utilities are all set. Anything else on our 2-week checklist?
A few more things that are easy to forget. One is canceling or transferring your gym membership.
Oh, yeah, I always forget about that one.
It's one of those recurring payments that just slips your mind.
Totally.
Yeah.
And while we're at it, the checklist says to start using up the food in our pantry and freezer.
Yes. Minimize waste, avoid packing up a ton of food.
Plus, it's a good excuse to get creative in the kitchen and use up all those random ingredients.
Exactly. And since moving can be such a big life change.
Yeah, it is.
The checklist also encourages us to spend some quality time with loved ones, especially if we're moving far away.
Oh, that's a nice reminder. It's not all about boxes and logistics. It's about connections and transition.
Exactly. And speaking of transitions, what better way to mark this chapter than with a good old-fashioned moving party?
I love that idea. A chance to say goodbye to the old home and make some fun memories.
Exactly. And while we're in party planning mode, let's not forget about safety. Properly dispose of any flammable items, bleach cleaning fluids, aerosol cans.
Right. Those things should never be packed with your other belongings.
Exactly. Safety first, especially when things are hectic.
Good point. And for our listeners who are Social Security beneficiaries, don't forget to update your address with the Social Security Administration, the VA, and the IRS within 10 days of your move.
Yes, that's a really important one.
You want to make sure all your mail and benefits are going to the right place.
Okay, so we've confirmed details, wrapped up loose ends, said our goodbyes, even had a farewell party. Now we're in the final week before the big move.
This is it, the home stretch. What does our checklist have in store for us as we enter this final phase?
This week is all about those finishing touches, deep cleaning, and making sure we haven't forgotten anything.
Okay, well, let's break it down. What are the key tasks for this final week?
Well, the checklist suggests tackling that freezer first. Use up those frozen foods or share them with friends and neighbors. You don't want to be defrosting a whole freezer on moving day.
That's true. And while we're at it, we should probably clean out the fridge too. If it's moving with us, it needs to be defrosted and dry before loading day.
Exactly. And if you have any non-perishable foods that you don't want to take with you, now's a good time to donate them.
Always a good idea to minimize waste.
Right. And here's one people often forget. Take out some cash for tipping the movers.
Oh yeah, that's important. They work really hard. And a tip is a great way to show appreciation.
Exactly. And now that the major packing is done this week is about finishing up those last few boxes and making sure everything is labeled and ready to go.
Okay, so pack everything except the essentials you'll need for the last couple of days.
Right? Clothes, toiletries, anything you use daily.
Got it. And while we're packing, we should probably confirm those travel plans one last time.
Yes. Make sure flights are booked, hotel reservations are confirmed, and any other travel arrangements are set.
No last-minute surprises. Okay, so we took care of logistics. What about the emotional side of things?
The checklist actually addresses that too.
Okay.
Now's a good time to say goodbye to your neighbors and start letting go of your old home.
That's a good point. Saying goodbye is important, even if it's a little sad. It helps us close that chapter and move on to the next one.
Exactly. And as we say goodbye to our old space, let's start cleaning.
Okay.
The checklist recommends cleaning empty rooms first and double-checking shelves and closets for any forgotten items.
Oh, yeah. I'm always surprised by what I find in the back of my closet.
Right. It's a chance to give our old home one last scrub and make sure we're leaving it in good condition. And if we're renting, this is when we need to collect all the keys and garage door openers to give to our real estate agent.
So, no keys left behind.
Right.
As we head into the final stretch, the checklist has some reminders specifically for moving day itself. What are those?
First, check the weather forecast. You want to be prepared for rain or snow?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Packing an umbrella or some extra blankets might seem small, but it can make a big difference.
Right. And here's an interesting suggestion. Take photos of your home for insurance purposes.
Oh, that's smart. Why didn't I think of that?
In case there's any damage during the move, you'll have proof of what your home looked like before the movers got there.
That's a great idea.
And speaking of being prepared, make sure your credit card company knows you're moving. Sometimes using your card in a new location can trigger a fraud alert.
Oh, yeah, that's happened to me before. It's so annoying.
Right. And it leads into another checklist suggestion. Pack a suitcase to live out of for the last couple of days and the first few in your new home.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
You don't want to be digging through boxes for your pajamas on the first night.
Exactly. Okay, we're in the final countdown now. Anything else we need to remember this last week? One of the last things is to schedule a final walkthrough of your home with the real estate agent.
Okay.
It's your chance to make sure everything is in order, document any damage, and finalize the move-out process.
It's the official closing of the chapter.
Exactly. And before you hand over those keys, don't forget to take care of any debris you're leaving behind.
Right. You want to leave the place in good condition for the next people.
Absolutely. And for those with outdoor items, remember to pack them up safely. And if there's any gasoline in lawnmowers or other outdoor equipment, make sure to drain it.
That's a safety precaution a lot of people forget about, but it's really important.
Okay, so we've made it to the last 48 hours before the move. The checklist has a few suggestions to minimize stress on moving day itself.
Okay, what are those?
First, create a worst-case scenario plan.
Okay.
Just in case the movers are late or there are unexpected delays.
Huh.
Think about what you'll do if things don't go exactly according to plan.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's about having a backup plan so you don't get stressed if something happens.
Exactly. And while we're thinking about being prepared, pack a separate box with supplies you'll need right away at your new place.
Okay.
Toilet paper, soap, basic cleaning supplies, maybe some snacks.
That's smart. You don't want to be searching for those things when you first get there.
Right. It's about making that initial transition as easy as possible.
Okay, good tip. And one final, very important task for this final stretch. Drain the outdoor hose and the hoses for your washing machine An ice maker if you're taking those appliances with you.
Yes, that's easy to forget, but it's important to prevent water damage.
Okay, we made it. It's
Yeah.
moving day. This is what all that planning was for. And our checklist has a lot of advice to make sure everything runs smoothly.
It does.
Okay, let's dive into those moving day tips. What's first?
Start the day by checking all your boxes one last time. Make sure they're closed and labeled. You don't want any surprises when the movers get there.
Good point. It's easy to forget to seal a box or label it properly.
And then do a final walkthrough of your entire home.
Oh.
Make sure you haven't forgotten anything.
It's amazing what you can find in those last-minute sweeps.
I know. This is your last chance to make sure you have everything.
Okay, and once the movers arrive, the checklist says we should be present during the whole loading process.
Yes. It's about overseeing the process, answering any questions they might have, and making sure your belongings are handled carefully.
Right, and you can point out any fragile items or give specific instructions for certain furniture.
Exactly. And while we're at it, don't forget to check that US DOT number on the side of the moving truck.
Oh, right.
It should match the number on your contract, and it's a quick way to verify that the moving company is legit.
Right, we talked about that earlier. It's a simple step that can protect you from those moving scams.
Exactly. And while they're loading the truck, protect your floors and carpets.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
Especially if you have hardwood floors or delicate carpeting.
Right, we can use drop cloths or blankets.
Yes. Anything to prevent scratches and damage.
Okay, good thinking.
Yeah.
And once everything's loaded on the truck, we need to sign the mover's inventory list and get a copy for our records.
Yes. This is super important for documenting the condition of your things.
Right, in case anything is damaged or goes missing.
Exactly. And before you leave your old home, turn off all the lights, lock the windows and doors, and if you're renting, drop off your keys with the building manager.
Okay, make sure everything is secure.
Yes. And as you head to your new home, don't forget that moving day bag with all your essentials.
Oh yeah, that's going to be our lifeline for the first few hours in the new place.
Exactly. Okay, so you've arrived at your new home. What's next?
I'm excited. What does the checklist say?
Get there early,
Okay.
check that the utilities are working, and make a clear path for the movers.
Oh, good idea. You don't want them tripping over boxes or anything.
Exactly. It's about making the unloading process as smooth as possible.
Okay, and what should we be doing while they're bringing everything in?
Be there to direct them to the right rooms, especially if you planned your furniture layout, and point out any fragile items.
Okay, got it. The movers have finished unloading everything. What happens now?
Don't forget to tip them.
Right, of course.
Okay.
And we should probably thank our real estate agent, too.
Yes, definitely. Show your appreciation to everyone who helped you along the way.
Okay, and now that we're finally alone in our new home, what does the checklist recommend?
Make your bed, unpack those necessities, and take a nap.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Moving day is exhausting.
It is. You need to rest and recharge before you start unpacking.
That does sound like a great idea.
Yeah.
Little nap is well-deserved after all that work.
It is. And, speaking of feeling good about the move,
Yeah.
let's not forget to leave a review for our moving company.
Oh, that's right. We should talk about that. Whether you had a good or bad experience, sharing your feedback can really help other people.
Exactly. It helps people make decisions, and it keeps those moving companies accountable.
It's about paying it forward and making the whole moving industry better for everyone.
I agree. So as we wrap up our deep dive into this awesome moving checklist,
Yes.
I think the biggest takeaway is just how important planning is.
It really is.
Yeah.
It might seem overwhelming at first, but it's worth it in the end.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Sure.
It takes all that potential chaos and breaks it down into manageable steps.
Right.
So you're not as stressed and you have a much smoother transition.
That's what we're all about here, right? Making moving as stress-free as possible.
Exactly. It's the same advice we give our clients, and it makes a huge difference.
Okay, so for our listeners out there who are getting ready to move, we hope this deep dive has been helpful.
Yes, we hope so.
We covered so much, from packing tips to dealing with landlords to that all-important moving day bag.
It's a reminder that even though moving can be tough, it's also a fresh start.
So true. And as you're going through all of this, we want to leave you with one final thought. Now that you've got all the logistics figured out, what are you most excited about in your new home?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Is it a bigger kitchen, a nice backyard, or maybe just the feeling of starting a new chapter?
Whatever it is, hold on to that feeling. Let it fuel you through all the hard work. Happy moving.
Happy moving, everyone.